So, E3 2011 season is approaching. As of my filming this, there are only 11 days left until Nintendo's E3 media briefing, which generally that's been on the first day of E3, so I'm assuming that's going to be the first day of E3. So, what will we see there? I'm going to talk about Nintendo first, because though I actually do own and play an Xbox 360 and would like to get a PS3 someday, Nintendo is a lot more fun to speculate about and to talk about because they're full of surprises. You never know what to expect from Nintendo. They do not do what people are expecting generally. And whenever Nintendo does what people are expecting, they tend to disappoint. This is going to be an interesting E3 because the company that has the most to lose, the company that's sort of playing defense, they tend to have the best E3 media briefing. For example, take E3 2004. Nintendo, they were playing defense in 03 and that wasn't a spectacular showing, but they really addressed what people were concerned about, and while their system never dominated in terms of market share, E3 coincided with a major turnaround in the perception of the GameCube. The talk of it being Nintendo's Dreamcast, of it being their last system, of Nintendo withdrawing from the home console cycle, that ended with E3 2004, I believe, because they had a strong lineup of products and they really addressed the concern, what people were saying. They spoke directly to that, and Reggie came out and said, hey, Nintendo's not the only system out there, and you're free to go elsewhere, but don't expect us to become something we're not to appease your tastes. So in 2005, they really had to back up their intention of really putting out the revolution as it was then known. They had to really put out the message that we intend to be the #1 system next generation. And E3 2006, even with all the buzz, with all the interest, if you said Nintendo's system would be the dominant system of the now current home console cycle, you'd get funny looks. And like as I mentioned before, GameSpot had the analysts predict the success of Nintendo Wii. They literally made that article as an April Fool's joke. The idea of Nintendo dominating the now current generation was laughable then, and they really, because I think they had a lot to show, a lot to prove, and a lot to lose, they really had a strong showing. In 2007 and 8, not so much in 9 was a lot better, but in 07 and 08, they were on top of the world. They really didn't have to prove to anyone that they could be a successful company. What they had to prove then was they had to prove that they were the system that both casual and hardcore gamers would be really interested and drawn to, and they didn't communicate that well, and a lot of gamers felt really alienated. And I think the perception that Wii is nothing but Wii Sports and Wii Music and Wii Play and Wii Fit and that's all the system has, a lot of that perception came from the media briefings. It was lack of communication. Nintendo in E3 2009, they started to get back into gear. In E3 2010, last year, they really hit the nail on the head. They came out with hit after hit after hit after hit. They came out with the 3DS, and Nintendo, I heard that they might have a 2-hour block allotted for their E3 presentation, and I think it might go an hour and a half, and an hour to an hour and a half, but they might have an in-theater sampling of their games again this year, possibly of the new system itself, the 6 home console. And I think Nintendo's going to want to do that because it really paid off last year. At E3 2010, Miyamoto really came out and explained, like, this is the future of Zelda, Wii Motion Plus and the Wii Nunchuck. It's really going to change everything. It's going to change the way we play Zelda. This is the next big advance in the history of Zelda. And it didn't work. On stage, at least, it did not work. There was too much wireless interference going on with all the hundreds of bloggers using Wi-Fi and cellular connections connecting to get all the news out. It did not work well. It did not work as it should have. And throughout E3, there are a lot of Nintendo naysayers saying like, "Aha, you know, the controls suck." But for all the damage that could have done, I'd say that could have been a huge disaster, except for the fact that Nintendo beforehand, not planning for their on-stage demo of Skyward Sword to be a bomb, but they really wanted to say, we are not letting you leave the theater until you feel this for yourself. And because they had that ready, they had those Skyward Sword demo booths ready to pop up out of the stage. They had the booth babe models with the 3DS console strapped to them to show them the 3D visuals in person. Because they had that there, and because people were able to see the 3D right there and feel the motion controls of Skyward Sword right there and see that it worked, they undid and prevented a lot of the damage that the failed on-stage demo could have caused. Will Nintendo come out with perhaps they do have demonstration, they have wired Wii Remote units for situations like that they can use. Will Nintendo come out again and do a really quick demo and saying, we'll show you it's going to work live on stage with this wired special unit, because on stage there's more wireless interference than you'll actually encounter at home. But be assured that when you get home, you will play this game with wireless Wii Motion Plus controls and it will feel excellent. Will Nintendo come out and say that? I don't know, but I know as far as Zelda goes, we're going to see the first meaningful plot details for Skyward Sword. We will see a new Zelda project that is not the nature of which has not been really expressed to us. Possibly something for 3DS, possibly something for the 6-home console even, I doubt that. But something, as Iwata teased, something that will let all Zelda fans play together, some sort of online Zelda experience, an online connected Four Swords. Who knows? Anything. We could, as far as that concerned, we could be getting anything. Now, in general, as far as the Wii is concerned, I think Nintendo is going to basically set up the back end of the major Wii releases, as far as the Wii being the flagship Nintendo console. They may keep it around after the launch of the 6-home console, but I don't. Its time in the limelight is really going to. This 2011 is going to be its big hurrah. And they're going to want to set up a lineup of games to keep players buying Wii games until the 6-home system is going to come out. We know we can. Well, I can't say this. There was that Kirby for GameCube we never saw. And the Kirby we saw some teasings of looks similar to that. A traditional Kirby game, not the Epic Yarn style. A traditional Kirby game as we've known it thus far. A Kirby we're going to see. We're going to see Skyward Sword. And maybe one or two other things, but as far as first party goes. But we're going to see they're going to be really getting out the last of, I think, their major Wii projects this year. They'll be announcing those this year. And for 3DS, we know we're going to see Super Mario 3D. Nintendo's in a unique position to market on the nostalgia and success of Super Mario Bros. 3, which is really still widely held as one of the best platforms ever, one of the best Marios ever, the best game ever. Super Mario Bros. 3, I think they have two unique ways they could sort of capitalize on that legacy. The new Super Mario Bros. Series it's had 2 installments so far, so if they make a new Super Mario Bros. Game, it will be New Super Mario Bros. 3. They could do that, and of course we have Super Mario 3D. Obviously 3 being in the title, and from the few screens we've seen at Game Developer Conference, we know that some elements of it, like Mario turning the Mario and Super Mario mechanic, is going to be back in this game for the first time in a 3D Mario game, so we'll maybe seeing it in terms of that. Excuse me, I'm filming like 5 videos back to back. My throat's a little hoarse here. So we're going to see Super Mario 3D for 3DS. I expect I wouldn't be surprised. I'd be surprised not to see a new Super Mario Brothers game, a new Super Mario platformer for the 6 home console. Something, like I said many times before, the equivalent of Super Mario 64 on Nintendo 64, the equivalent of Super Mario Galaxy at E3 2006 for the Wii, even though it didn't launch with it. We're gonna see. I hope to see the equivalent of that. Pikmin. Will it be for the 3DS? Will it be for the 6th home console? A Pikmin game has been discussed for quite a while, and I think we're gonna see something interesting. Perhaps an online Pikmin experience. Who knows? I keep saying who knows, but I'm just saying what I'd like to see. Now, here's something. When people say, "Oh, what's coming out for 3DS?" A lot of people seem to have forgotten about Paper Mario for 3DS. That game is on the way. They've been various whispers, and of more than one Metroid project for Nintendo portables, and we haven't seen or heard anything of them. Of course, we've heard Metroid Dread rumors. I think something is going to materialize of that fairly soon. For the home consoles, I think Nintendo wants to give the Metroid brand a rest for a while. They really hoped that Metroid Other M would be, okay, we've seen the Metroid Prime concept for a modern Metroid game. Now Metroid Other M is going to be the concept for a third-person Metroid on a modern system, and it did not work out as well as it ought to have. It did not sell to Nintendo's expectations. It did not get the reception Nintendo was expecting. And I can make a whole other video about that, but I do not expect to see Metroid on the 6 home console when they reveal that. I believe Nintendo's E3 presentation will be June 7th. We knew before the 3DS launch that there's going to be this big update in May where they're going to add the web browser, possibly Netflix, they're going to add the Nintendo eShop, they're going to add the web browser if I haven't mentioned that already, they're going to add a host of new features to the point where it's almost like the system they shipped in March was sort of like a half-empty box where the half of the system that you paid for in March is still on the way, and we're going to get that in May. Reggie stood up on stage right in front of my eyes and said, the big update's coming in May, but hang on, because right now we're just going to open up the doors to the world of 3DS, and so hang on until May. They delayed that until June 6th, the day before Nintendo's E3 media briefing, and that is quite a bold move. Nintendo has a lot riding. If the big update does not go smoothly, Nintendo is going to have a rough E3. I really hope the big update for 3DS goes smoothly. I expect perhaps even some sort of surprise where Nintendo will show, perhaps even stream their E3 media briefing through the 3DS, through some special channel or something to that effect. And if you've been watching Nintendo America's Twitter feed, they've been working their Twitter feed and making sure as many people as possible know to watch e3.nintendo.com on June 7th. Even last year they did it, but this year they're really stressing it, I think. They want as many people as possible to see the revealing of the 6 home console. Nintendo knows this is going to be big. They want as many people looking as possible. They're doing something significant in Nintendo world. They want this will be big. This isn't like E3 2007 and 8, where they were, we've come from this being the next Dreamcast, the next Sega, to being on top of the world, and for that we're going to pat ourselves on the back for an hour in our presentation, and do the same thing next year, and really sort of leave the fans in the cold. It's not going to be like E3 2009, where it's like, are they going to do a casual-oriented show, or will it be mixed, or what big things they're going to show? We know this is going to be a big deal. This is going to be the most important Nintendo E3 of this decade. The most important since '06, to say the least. It's going to be a really defining moment in Nintendo history. And I'm going to make a prediction. I'm going to say something very specific, and I did talk about ideas and what the idea of the next system might be, or what the direction they might be taking. I'm going to say something very specific, and that can be definitively proven as correct or incorrect. I'm going to make a prediction right now. The big update is coming the day before E3. Nintendo's going to want as many people as possible to get that update the day before E3. And when the eShop launches, I really do expect it to be there on the day before E3, on the 6th with the big update. The eShop will be there. They might show a little demo of, or just a trailer perhaps, of Super Mario 3D. And Reggie, probably Reggie, maybe Iwata. I think probably Reggie, it would be his style to do this, particularly. He's going to come out, and it's going to be like experiencing Super Mario platforming in true 3D is going to change the world of Mario like never before. But if you can't wait till fall, then don't worry, because right now on the Nintendo eShop, Super Mario 64 Remastered in 3D is available for download right now. I expect that to be a bombshell Nintendo will drop. Nintendo, they have, if you aren't aware, they've been toying with the idea of adding 3D to classic games, and what they've called this is, I believe, 3D Classics. Mario 64, that is a game that deserves to be played in true 3D. Not something that quite warrants a complete remastering. If they had done it, I wouldn't have complained, and I'm glad that Nintendo's being really Ocarina of Time 3D, Star Fox 64 to 3D, and Miyamoto says we're not planning to do a bunch of 3D ports. That's what I think 3D Classics on the eShop will be for. They will put Mario 64 just as we played it on Nintendo 64, and with widescreen display added, of course. None of the gimmicks, the revisions they made for Mario 64 DS, but just that same game in 3D. And I think they're going to drop that during the media briefing to tide people over until Super Mario 3D comes out. As for the nature of the sixth home console, I've discussed endlessly about the new system, but I will just say, finally, it will be taking everything that made their first four consoles in particular a hit, made everything that made their fans happy with those systems, and marrying that to everything that made the Wii such a massive mainstream hit. And that will be the new system. What will its name be? Obviously not Sixth Home Console. That's what I call it. Project Cafe, that's an internal name, as Project Nitro was with the DS. Before DS was a code name too, but it was known as Project Nitro internally. Project Cafe, I expect to be an internal code name. It will have a new name. I do not expect for it to be the Wii 2. I do not expect for it to be the Wii HD. It will not be a Wii. It will be a new idea. It will be a new paradigm, a new system for Nintendo. And with that in mind, I think it will be specifically to be mainstream, accessible, be brand-oriented, as was the Wii, but draw the attention of the traditional gamer who skipped over the Wii, or who bought a Wii and was disappointed, or really wasn't following it and felt that the Nintendo had abandoned the traditional gamer in favor of the expanded audience. And that will play into its name. That will play into the look of the system. I expect it to be larger than the Wii, but smaller than the NES, smaller than the Xbox 360. The graphics will be notably better than the 360, but not as good as the PS3. That's what I'm predicting. And I'm not going to discuss the rumors, the speculation on the controller about the new features. I'm not going to talk about that because, well, one, I like surprises. I'm not into picking at every little scrap of news that comes out, but even if we could be fairly certain there's going to be some sort of screen in the controller, the nature of it, what that will mean, how that will play into the system, the big picture, it's like being told that the DS has two screens. Yeah, it has two screens, so what? Yeah, but the bottom screen is a touchscreen. There will be something about the way Nintendo will implement the new controller, whatever features it may or may not have, that will be a big advance that will be really, really interesting. So that's what I have to say about Nintendo for E3 2011.